Welcome back. So, I just came back from a program, 3 days, 2 nights. It is called the Dignity Project, sponsored by Hebrew College here. And that program is to train interreligious, interfaith, maybe leaders in the future. And I'm one of the mentors of the program. So we train high schoolers who are from various religious, racial backgrounds, and it's been a wonderful program, and it goes throughout the academic year. So there will be several retreat and meeting to help them, engage more and understand more about different religious practices and beliefs, and how to have constructive dialogues amongst the differences. So that's why I didn't have time to email you about our class, but you show up anyway, so that's good. Studious students, that's good. Um, all right, so that's me. I've a little bit tired. You know. All right, so be this is a part of our class now that I'll ask you question. Tell me something controversial in Buddhism. Okay, so let me rephrase that. Give me a controversial statement in Buddhism.
Oh, I see.
All right, you Bao.
Dear thầy, one of the things that I found that conflicts between Theravada and Mahayana is that Theravada only believe on the single Buddha, Sakyamuni Buddha, while Mahayana said that there many Buddha exist. So yes, that.
Okay. So there are different beliefs in how many Buddhas between Mahayana and Theravada. Okay. Tan, you still wanna? I see your hand.
The
All right.
the faith that people have in it, like it's not a real religion. I don't see it as that, but I have faith in my practice, and people don't see that at times.
Okay. That's good, but that's not controversial enough for me. Nguyên Thiện, you wanna try?
Yes. You say that one statement in the sutra that I recite every day, at the moment of death, if we can recite just the Buddha's name, 4 words, Amitabha 10 times, till you go to the Pure Land and escape all the life and birth cycle.
So how is that controversial?
It's controversial in a sense that
Some people believe the Pure Land exists and some people doesn't.
Yeah, many people don't believe it. Basically, all the monks I've talked to so far, even some monks say that I believe call Ta Kieng incorrect thinking.
Wrong view. Ta Kieng is wrong view.
Yeah, wrong view. I mean, few monks are talking about that. So
okay. Any other? statements? David?
So I just want to clarify, are you saying controversial within Buddhism or some controversial statements of Buddhism out that would appear to be controversial outside of Buddhism?
Both.
So one that I've run into since we're talking about the Pure Land is the idea or concept that the Pure Land is around us everywhere, and that we can experience the Pure Land simply by being mindful, being in the moment to experience the Pure Land, right? If you want to get more controversial on the outside, we could discuss how some Buddhist monks perform self-immolation. That's very controversial, I think.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Robin?
Dear Tay, I think there's almost nothing that you can say about Buddhism that applies to all facets of Buddhism. There are groups where the monks are married and have families. There are, sects where the monks eat meat, people eat meat. There are sects where they're vegetarian. I've read a lot about Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana, and there's almost nothing that applies to all Buddhists. I just wanted to go back to Theravada only believes in one Buddha. They actually believe in many, many Buddhas, but not the celestial Buddhas like Amitabha. But they do believe in the Buddhas that preceded Sakyamuni and Maitreya as well. But there's very little that you can say about Buddhism that applies to Buddhism across the board.
Thank you. Those are quite controversial statements within and from outside of Buddhism, right? So let's not discuss whether they're right or wrong because they're controversial. So we're still trying to figure it out, right? So let's keep that in mind and return to our Diamond Sutra here. Remember last week we studied that, the Buddha asked a question, does the Tathagata give any teaching? And today we incorporate that question with the sentences, nor is there any independently existing teaching that the Tathagata gives. Why? The teachings that the Tathagata has realized and spoken of cannot be conceived of as separate, independent existence from other Dharma or things. So, first, he say, do you think that I give any teaching? And yes, the teaching that he delivered cannot be conceived of as separate, independent existence. So whatever he teaches, is not separated from what is supposed to be non-teaching. So for example, he may say, first of all, if we think that the Buddha gives any teaching that is separate from other thing, we are mistaken. Conventionally, the Buddha was born, attained enlightenment, taught, and enter nirvana. here, the Buddha said that he doesn't give any teaching that independently exists. Independently exists, meaning that it exists dependent. So you may wonder, what about those teaching that we learn and practice every day, in the so we may wonder that, what about those teaching that we learn and we chant in the sutras? So be careful, don't lose yourselves in language. The teaching of highest and most fulfilled wisdom is not separate from what we call non-highest, most fulfilled wisdom. The Buddha just tested. He tested Subhuti to see if he understood. If Subhuti said, yes, you teach us the teaching to achieve enlightenment, then Subhuti was kind of stuck in language. Because see, if we don't have a concept, if we don't have the idea that this is right, my teaching is right, the way I practice is right, then there would be no controversial. Why do you think that there are monks who eat meat? There are monks who are vegetarian. There are monks who get married. Why do we think that? It is contextual. And if we stuck in the appearances, then we are not really a good practitioners. The more we practice, the less we attest. That's the idea. That's the ideal of our spiritual practice. For example, if you believe that, when I am going to die, if I can recite the Buddha's name for 7 times, become very concentrated in the name, I will be reborn in the Pure Land. And then someone jump in and then criticize you, that is such a superstition. It's not true. You practice wrong. Then you immediately, react to that. That's wrong. The wrong from both sides. Wrong from the person who criticized you and wrong from the person who react to that criticism. Because here, even the Buddha said that even the highest, most fulfilled wisdom should not be seen as something separated from others, from other things. Right? It's just a conventional way to describe something that is not describable. It's just like when you drink water, it's so cold. You can go so far to say it's cold. If someone wants to argue with you, say that's not cold, just let them drink the water. Why do you argue with them that it's cold? So it's something that is indescribable, and then you try to argue with someone who have never tasted the water. That's just a waste of time and your energy, because you feel threatened by the dispute, by the conflict. So for now, I have no interest in argue with people who say that Buddhism says this. Buddhism say what? Buddhism doesn't have a mouth. How can Buddhism say anything? Right? That's next time. Be careful when you say Buddhism say this. You may say in a shorter way, maybe from what I understand about this through my practice is it's safer than say Buddhism says this. Buddhism is not a static, unchanged thing. Buddhist scripture is a living document, and we are writing that document. We are contributing to that document. And we want to make sure that we don't misrepresent Buddhism as a whole. Because even as someone as a great teacher who claims something, there would be some Buddhists who will fast to dispute, you know? Because that even that revered teacher cannot represent the whole Buddhism. You bow?
Yeah, just so this is a little bit confusing to me because in a, I believe in the Pali Canon, their sutra state that the teaching of the Buddha is something that time independent, so it unchained with time. So how should I understand that?
Harmless, right? Harmless wisdom, right?
Yes.
Harmless wisdom doesn't mean um so let's talk about the technical term here. Since some of your English is better than mine, so you may jump into do this. So timeless wisdom from the teaching doesn't mean that it stay in the language, it stay in the wording. The wisdom that you after you study, you transform whatever inside and that become your wisdom doesn't necessarily correspond to the language that is there in the sutra. Am I making any sense here? So you read a passage from the sutra, and then you practice, and then you have some kind of wisdom insight, and that wisdom um, is similar to the one in the last 500 years who read that sutra, and there's some transformation happen. So the kind of wisdom that you both have is timeless. The sutra itself is very contextual. The sutra, when you read it, it depends on where you are, who you are, how much you have learned, what kind of language you read. So that sutra is not is a small vehicle carrying the truth. Okay, so um when you read a Pali Canon or a sutra in the Pali Canon, it says something. Okay, how much you understand it, how much you practice it, how much wisdom you generate after you practice it, that is your kind of your fruits of your practice, right? And that is timeless. That is, if you go deeper in that wisdom, use that wisdom to see the world, the way you see and the way the Buddha see is similar, and that is timeless. That the wisdom is timeless. I'm not sure if I'm making sense here. Okay?
I think so. Thank you.
Yeah?
Mhm.
Okay, so and also remember this. When the Buddha spoke any teaching, there was no immediate writing. Okay? So the tradition was to memorize his words and then say it to your students. Then your student will memorize your words, and then it's your student just keep going. There's no writing yet for several decades during that time. We Buddhists may try to convince ourselves that those people have perfect memories. They remember everything. Yes, some of them remember everything. But during the schism, meaning the separation between different sects, traditions, there are different versions are emphasized more than others. So if I am in this, you know, Shavativada school, I would emphasize this part of the sutra. If I'm in the other school, I emphasize other part of sutra. And when you emphasize something, you undermine something. Okay, so and people change, society change, right? That's why when someone take word for words in the sutra, they are trapped. They're trapped in the language. And the Buddha wouldn't want that. He wouldn't want his student to be trapped in the language. That's why the idea of Mahayana practice is to, release yourself from the inevitable, um, cage of language. Language can free us, but language also can trap us, you know. Um, remember reading the sutra between the lines, reading where there is no words, you know. So it's but conventionally, you if you want to go from point A to a point B, so point B is the highest, most fulfilled wisdom. You are given certain teachings and methods to go from A to B, right? But when you are on the path, you rely on the teachings and methods to get to whatever you want to get. Like if you practice Pure Land Buddhism, you recite the name of the Buddha, you do merits, you do all good things, right? To accumulate merit, right? But after you have completed the path, you realize that A and B, you know, is already there. There's no need for a path. There's no path. You don't even have to travel. You just need to change your perspective and you see no different from A to B. That's the different way to say there's no lotus without mud. Because before we hate mud because it's so dirty, so you know stinky, right? But then when you practice, you cultivate lotus. But after that, you have lotus, beautiful lotus. And now you realize, oh, I don't have to hate mud anymore, you know? So to see like that, we have to zoom out. We have to zoom out from our normal ways of seeing, The path is already there. The Buddha does not give anything when when you realize that. But right now, we have to ground ourselves. We need something, right? We need something. We need the path, right? We need the teaching, the methods to practice to enable us to see differently. It's not easy, but it's not hard. I so let me give you another example. So I do a lot of interfaith kind of work. I study research with a bunch of ministers, Catholic priests, Muslim imam, um, Jewish rabbi. So each of us hold dearly to an idea that our path is the right one. Our path is the only one. If we hold idea like that, how can we work together? You have to put your mind in the mind of the other person and see they okay, if I have this strong attachment to my idea and they also have that strong attachment to the idea, where's the common ground here? Similarly, we Buddhists, we have 6 people here. We have our own strong idea of what kind of Buddhism we practice, right? That's good. But then you have to also think that they also have similar kind of mental mindset. So when, and how do we find common ground? We return to this passage. We return to this passage. What we are holding is just a means to get to there, not the end, not the moon. It's just a finger. That is how you get rid of the attachment. You should challenge yourself sometimes. Don't get your bubble bigger. Maybe sometimes you have to step out of that bubble and see, other people bubble, and there other people bubble, see how struggling they are trying to protect that bubble. And it's fun to see. It's really fun to see. People, at first, we admire their commitment, conviction, but also we feel that, it's we feel sad for them. Keep like building their golden cage, and then stuck in that cage, regardless of how beautiful that cage is. It's still a cage. Hold on to an idea. It's a cage. Hold on. Is a trapped. You trap yourself in a cage. You're not free. Even that cage is beautiful. You still are caged. David?
Dear Kai, dear Sangha, um, I'd like to say something very controversial after saying that the the Pure Land can be a nice golden cage.
Be careful, okay? Remember what you are getting yourself into. So yes, Pure Land, Zen, Mahayana, Theravada, those are beautiful vehicle if we put them in good use, put them into good use. Otherwise, they are just cage. And remember, the moment of death is important. If now you cannot get rid of your attachment to the idea, to your own idea, when you're about to die, someone go to you and say something that you don't believe in, then you become angry. That's problem. So that cage become your permanent um prison. That's so scary, right? That's dangerous. So how right now we are still clear-minded, aware. Why don't we get rid of it a little bit? Yet, yes, you have strong foundation in your practice. Nobody will argue with you there. But then when someone come and make a controversial statement, make sure that it doesn't affect you. Make sure that you can find common ground if you are a bodhisattva. If you are a an open-minded person, find common ground, you know? Or at least don't become defensive. That is the idea of how we Buddhists should, transform attachment, not just hold on to our thing and don't care about other things. Because regardless of whether you care or not, there will be someone who annoys you and you will get mad and you will be forced to follow or react to that negative emotion. And if that happens when the time of your near death, then that would be dangerous for your next birth. Thanh?
So that being said, thank you, Tai, for teaching us that. So I was just going and reminding myself of the raft that you taught us about, like the path to like enlightenment. So if we use our mindset and our practice that in order to build the raft, will that get us to where we want to go? Or is there other, you know?
Can you say again?
So the raft that you said that we had to build with the practice and the mindset that we have, is that where we begin our journey and then we are on continuation of it, or is that just the beginning of our
So building a raft right now is important for all of us, right? That we agree that we are trying to cross the river or the ocean of birth and death, right? So it's important, but remember, it's just a raft. It's a vehicle. It's a vehicle, it's not the destination. And that's the image of the teaching. Remember, in one sutra, the Buddha said, the teaching is like a snake, poisonous snake. Okay? If you grasp the teaching the wrong way, if you grasp the teaching, the snake in the tail, it will bite you. So be careful. This is the Buddha said, not something I make up. He said, my teaching is like a poisonous snake. So when you want to uh, grasp the teaching, be careful. Because he knows that during the 21st century, there will be people who hold on to his teaching the wrong way. And think that the dangerous thing is that they hold on to the wrong way, but they think that they are holding on to the right way. And how do we distinguish that? That's the question for us. Very simple, easy to know. You want to know? That is the exercise that I asked you to do in the beginning of the class. Listen to a controversial statement and see if it nuts you, if it's bother you. If it is, then There's something that you're holding down to a little bit wrong there. Everything in the Buddhist system is a means. What is behind the practice? What is the achievement? What is called nirvana is indescribable. It is like when you burn a candle or a light, and when the oil, run out, the light goes off. That's nirvana. Because there's no other way the Buddha describe it. No more condition, no more rebirth. And we still are trying to hold on to something. There is something. The Buddha said, no. If there's nothing, there's no conditions, no rebirth. If there's no self, no rebirth. Why we get reborn? Because we still hold on to things. What if we hold on to the names of the Buddha? This is a question for those who practice Amitabha Buddha. What if we hold on to the name of the Buddha? Hmm?
You become him.
Become him. That's a bold statement.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
His name is easier remember.
Okay. Robin?
Would holding on to the bodhisattva vows prevent you from becoming enlightened?
Good questions. So vows, like all other teachings, are not something for us to hold on to. We manifest those vows in our life. Those vows are not doctrine. They are not dogma for us to kind of, um, hold on to. They are something that we should embody. Let's put it that way. For example, one vow would be I vow to save all beings, right? So if the first case, if you hold on to it like, oh, I have to save all beings. If there's someone still there, I cannot become a good bodhisattva, right? So that is holding down. But when you embody that vow, you do the work, save being as many as you can. And if you cannot save all, that's fine. You continue your next birth to do that. There's no attachment to the vow. There's no bothering if you cannot do it. There's no argument if someone say you don't do it enough, because you are not holding down to that, because you just embody that. Let's return to the holding on to the name of the Buddha. Similarly, if you hold on to the name, what is the content of that? We need the content. You need to embody the quality of the name, not saying just the words. Saying words means nothing. It's just like you have the little machine that recites names beautifully, you know? So saying names without understanding, without embodying, then it's just like that, you know? Because when we say niệm Phật or reciting the name is to remember. Remember what? Remember the quality. and people become so um, frustrated when they cannot recite a certain amount of names per day, right? That's that's holding on, that's attachment. If you can recite long many times, that's good. But if you can recite once and you live out that kind of quality your whole day, then it's better than a person who recites 1,000 times, but when they get out of that recitation, they get angry easily. They, so I don't know. It's just how you embody those vows or those names is better than holding on to something or labeling our own, you know, label our practice without getting into the content, the quality of such profound practices. And if we can do that, we all become noble teachers. In this part, the Buddha said noble teacher are those who free themselves from attachment and detachment. Remember, those are two extreme, binary extremes, detachment and attachment. Whatever noble teachers do is unconditioned. Remember, if there is condition, there is rebirth. If there is no condition, there's no rebirth. If there is still oil, there will be light. If there is no oil, there will not be light. So we are trying to maybe get there. The get is not the right word, but for our conventional sake, we are trying to get there. But to get there, we have to let go a lot of things. We are not building anything. We letting go of a lot of things. So when I try to kind of we we try to use the word build a raft, it's also it may defeat our purpose, because we try to get rid of a lot of stuff, not accumulate, right? But then right now we accumulate a lot of teachings and practices so that we can get rid of them later. It's 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 kind of like you are about to go on a journey. You accumulate certain things, food, clothes, all kinds of things, right? So you need those for your travel. Like us, we need those for our travel. But when we are there, we may not need them anymore. So those for us and for noble teachers, we are alike. We use language, we use concepts. But for them, for the noble teachers, they don't hold on to language or concepts. After the use, they abandon them, you know. Any observation, anything that bothers you? David?
Okay, Dursanga. So all things are rafts in that sense. And it's odd because like you use the raft to get to where you want to go, then you let it go. Um, And are there times when you spend so much time building a specific raft that it's very, very, very hard to let go of that raft? And that can actually be an impediment to your journey, let's say.
Yes, like some of us monks here, we build beautiful temples, and sometimes we become attached to our temples. Um, but without temple, without a center, where can we hold those retreats for people, right? So we are walking a thin line here, building something, but have to remember what's the purpose of that. Don't lose the sense of purpose. That's why we have the ideal, the bodhisattva ideal that we that's our true north, you know. That's true north that guiding us to get there. And of course, along the way we will stumble and we will fall and we'll defeat our purpose, but then we have to be aware to come back to realize that, oh, why do I do this? Why do I do this? And in Mahayana Buddhism, um, the practice of Bodhisattva is so wonderful. Maybe I'm biased here. I'm biased, of course, that when we have the Bodhisattva idea, we become so open. We become welcoming, and we become um, we try to create our bigger spiritual field, like last time we said, make our field bigger. Of course, we can stay in a small field, right? For our own good. We don't have to reach out to people because Buddhist practice is very personal and private, right? You can do it by your own. You just need a teacher, or you can watch and can read sutra and practice on your own. But then in the Bodhisattva idea, we um, reach out and carry other people with us. It's not an easy job. It's not even a job. It's an endeavor. It's a calling, right? You Bao?
Dear Thầy, thank you so much. I think what you have just shared, it really touched my heart, because I think I learned it in a hard way, in the sense of, when I enter Buddhism and through a specific approach for my practice, I did stuck with that. In I myself to see people around me, 20, 30 years practicing, stuck with their approach and didn't even realize that they create the prison for themselves. Myself devoted to the practice that I selected. For a while, then I realized, it seemed to me like the practice or the idea that I stuck with actually generates some sorts of suffering. And by letting go of it have to be this way, have to be this fake way, then actually practicing bring a lot more joy and peace. So, but it's not always easy to know that. By if about a few years ago, if I hear what you teach me right now, I would just ignore it, because I think that this is my way of practice. But until through time, by noticing what the results of practice brings, you know, whether it bring peace or joy, or whether actually creates more constraint and suffering, and notice what wrong, then I change my perception, then, you know, thinking. And now when I hear the teaching, then I feel connected, then I open, I think it's right. But for I think in general, it is really hard for someone just enter and just open for own the idea. It's sometimes it's really, a lot of times you actually have to learn it in a hard way. And some people would never be able to learn it. You just they get stuck with that idea for the entire life as well. So I just don't know what's the best approach in learning Buddhism to avoid, you know, that mistake.
You want to know what's the best way to learn Buddhism?
Mm-hmm.
The best way to learn Buddhism is to unlearn Buddhism. To unlearn what you have learned. Learning is not hard. Unlearning is hard. Okay? Because when people fixate on an idea, then they will die with that idea. Perhaps sometimes they know deep down that there's something wrong with that idea. But because of the ego, they just, you know, okay, I'll die with this. So the best way to learn Buddhism is to unlearn it. We only learn how to learn. We rarely learn how to unlearn. What David is writing here. Unlearn is a practice. Yes, of course. It need practice, right? So I remember a koan. A koan is a public statement that don't use your critical mind to think. So it said, what is the sound of one hand? Some people say, what is the sound of one hand clapping? Right? So what is the sound of one hand? In order to solve this koan, we have to go beyond our thinking mind. So what is the sound of one hand clapping? I think it is a great example of not being attached to anything. So use the one hand to make a sound. Probably you have to raise it first, right? Raise your hands to make a sound. Maybe Amia one hand and your mom one hand can make a sound. So when you raise your hand, you free yourself of whatever you're holding. You are getting ready to make a sound. You don't hold on to anything because you want to make a sound out of that hand. You want to make a sound out of that impossible. The sound of one hand is impossible when you hold on to something with that hand. You know, it is a metaphor for your mind. Your mind cannot reach anything if it holds down, you know, hold on to an idea or a view tightly. So perhaps it is now the time for us to raise our hand to make a sound. Drop everything that you hold on to dearly so that, you know, you can see the wonder of the sound of one hand. ask yourself, what is something that I am holding tightly, even though sometimes I know deep down that if I let it go, I will be free. Honestly ask yourself that question every day. So you will be free from your own prison of your own attachment. And people say it is impossible to make a sound with one hand. That's fine too. Did I shatter your word? Or did I confuse you? If both I'm successful, but if not, then the journey to be continued.
It's was very insightful today. Thank you.
And then
Amia, you want to say something? Depends on how fast you can move your hand. Yeah, some people move fast, some people move very slow. So at least you raise your hand, right? You have the intention to raise your hand. You do it, and then you let it go.
Thank you, Thầy. I learned so much about the sutra from the beginning until today. I felt like you have awakened my mind. I just have a question about the ideas about the best way to learn Buddhism is unlearn it, right? Or drop or attachment or stuff like that. I have the same issues like you mentioned earlier, in the sense that I've practiced with Thich Tam Tien for 15, 20 years. And then I gradually move on to recite the Buddha name to go to Pure Land. Wonderful. But it didn't bring peace to me at all. So I gradually, because when I practice with Thich Tam Tien, I always have peace in my mind and my heart, well, a lot of time, because I survived September 11 in New York City and work in New York City, and I go home and feel peaceful, and I still walk in the middle of all the chaos with very calm mind. But practice with the recite Buddha name is just it's tough. So I gradually move back to that. Start to meditate. I try to move back and integrate both. In my little Buddha hall, I have the picture of both Nhất Thanh Nhật Hạnh and also Hoa Thực Định Không, that I also uh, prostrate and talk to both of them every day to help me that. So the issue is, when do we know to unlearn it? That's the issue, right? At least practice to drop all the meditation and mindfulness and all those stuff, is focus on to think, Venerable Thich say, just recite the Buddha name. And the more I recite, I wasn't, didn't bring me a lot of happiness. Like I had to use to with the focus on mindfulness and teaching thing. So the issue is when we know to unlearn it. That is critical. So I hope that you can clarify some there, or somewhere there's a sign or signal or silence or whatever. But that is the part. It's hard. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very vulnerable comment and very heartfelt comment. So I think to be able to unlearn, there must be some learning to start with, right?
Yeah.
Whether it's for the better or for worse, you have learned something. You have learned some practice. You have learned certain teaching. And then along the way, you do the practice, you spend a few years to practice. And then, sometimes that practice bring you peace, sometimes it doesn't. But because you believe in Buddhism, you want to be a good Buddhist, you keep trying to practice, keep exploring different methods and different practices, and then Some practice feel right, some practice doesn't feel right. Um, um, and I think the moment for all of us to realize that we should unlearn something is when we don't see the benefit, real benefit from the practice. Not like if I recite, I will get merits, or I earn merits, or I will accumulate merits. That's very abstract. Uh, because the Buddha, advises us that the practice, the benefit is here and now. So
Yeah.
we wait for a future for that practice to bear fruit, right? So like many of our Pure Land practitioners uh, are waiting for something else, for something in the future
Right.
to manifest.
Mhm.
And I see that many masters like Master Tin Không,
Yeah.
that his teaching is deeper than that.
Right.
It's
Right.
not just,
Right.
you recite and you wait. It's not like
Yes. Yeah.
uh, I think there are many, many different layers in his teaching.
Mhm.
Maybe
Mhm.
we just have to have a closer look, a slower listen to his teaching, and it doesn't have to be one thing or the other. Like you say, we can cooperate, can
Yep.
use
Yep.
different teachings from
Mhm.
him, from Sư ông Nhất Hạnh, from
Yeah.
Zen,
Mhm. Mhm.
So at that moment, oh, I have learned that I just have to stick to one teaching. Now I have to unlearn that. So now I can incorporate different teachings
Mhm.
that bring me peace, bring me the sense of belonging. I have a community of like-minded practitioners who like to recite the Buddha's name. I also have people in, Plum Village who practice mindfulness with me. I have
Mhm.
people who practice both. So
Yeah.
I am now a free practitioners, you know?
Mhm. Yep.
So sometimes we have to use, like when you get sick, you have to use different kinds of medication, right?
Mhm.
Medication, not meditation.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
So you use 4 or 5 different kind of medicine.
Mhm.
Similarly, when you are stuck, when you don't find real fruits of your practice, maybe you are approaching that practice uh, in an incorrect way. So maybe you can use other practice to
Mhm.
kind of make your own smoothie or practice,
Mhm.
you know?
Yep.
Uh, like you
Yep.
make a smoothie, if you just make only banana, it would taste like banana, right? So mix a little bit of strawberry, blueberry,
Mhm. Mhm.
whatever, make it better, taste better.
Yep. Yep.
And now you immerse yourself in the whole tradition of Buddhism, not just one.
Yep. Yep.
And
Yep.
how do we
Thank you.
get, yeah, and how do we get there? It's very, for me, I get there, get to the unlearn through the um I have to thank people from different religious traditions for that, to help me to unlearn my own biases,
Mhm.
and my own kind of attachment to one single tradition.
Yep.
So now I'm proudly say that I am non-denominational Buddhist practitioner. It's free.
Yeah.
It's freedom.
Yep.
Thank you, Mia.
Yeah. Thank you, thầy, for your
an empty mind is an open mind. But if you have an open mind, you are more vulnerable to losing your path. Or should we not be attached to the path? So remember, before we can reach out, before we can um, um, do the bodhisattva work, we have to be grounded as well. Grounded not in the sense of one single thing, but grounded in the whole tradition, in the tradition, right? Grounded here doesn't mean you become attached to that tradition only, but you trust yourself, you trust your practice that, oh, now I'm grounded. I'm ready to do this work. I'm ready to explore more. But remember to always have your spiritual practice. It doesn't, when we say open mind, it doesn't like, okay, I have to give up my belief or my own thinking to be acceptable, to fit in. No, that's not like that. That's not the case. It is to like an encouragement for you to root it in your tradition, in your practice. Then, regardless of whatever external condition you encounter, you are willing to, explore. You are willing to welcome them, and still you are still strong within your tradition. For me, when I explore other tradition, that beautify my tradition. It beautify my tradition. It helped me appreciate my practice more, you know. Regardless of people, even within Buddhism, regardless of what kind of crazy things they say about their tradition, we know deep down that if we practice correctly, there's only one goal for us all: to be liberated. Liberated from what? Liberated from our own prison. Zen, Pure Land, Theravada, Mahayana, Vajrayana. What's the point? What's the point of your practice? To become a better debater? To become a better thinker? To become a better meditator? I don't think there's such a thing called better meditator. Whether you meditate or not, you know? If you meditate, if you practice, you practice. There's no better. If someone's claim that they are a better practitioner, then there's something wrong. David,
They're tied, you're signing out. So what do you consider practice to be?
you say I meditate. You don't do meditation. At first you may do meditation, but then you meditate.
Are you saying that meditation is practice and only meditation is practice?
No, 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 I'm not saying that. So meditate, recite the name. What do you do when you meditate? You embody, right? You embody whatever um whatever final stage of meditation is. But you don't live in meditation. You have to get out of the meditation. You live in the world, right? So you embody those quality. When you recite the name also, you practice, you embody quality of the Buddha. You walk out as a Buddha. You breathe as a Buddha.
So could you say that flowing like a river could be a practice?
Say more about that.
So when a river flows, it doesn't get, as water's moving down a stream, there's sometimes many rocks or many obstacles. But if you watch the water, a lot of times the water just, it goes around the obstacle. It doesn't get stuck. It doesn't get attached. And so when water flows, it just flows. It doesn't, it intrinsically doesn't grab onto things and tries to wait. It just flows, right? And so when I think about everything that we've talked about today about learning and teaching and these concepts and the arising of these conditions where specific teachings can be useful at a certain time, but as that time changes, that teaching may no longer be useful. There may be another teaching. There's many different rafts. And some rafts are appropriate for some conditions, while other rafts are appropriate for other conditions. And if you get stuck in any one of those rafts, you might not be able to cross that river. On the other hand, if you have that open mind and you're able to slowly be able to flow between, or jump from raft to raft to raft, and the more rafts you have that can help you, it seems that gives you a better understanding. So it really seems that practice is more about cultivating understanding, cultivating wisdom, more than anything else.
The image of the river is very poetic and very, I think it's a good way to talk about our practice. And also remember, we are not a river, we are water. So because if we're still stuck in the idea of we are a river, then when we go to ocean, we are separate from the ocean, right? So now, if we are water, then we just go to the water and we're not different from the ocean, right? So go as a river, but each of us is water. And then we get there, there's no separation. Okay. Let's flow and carry with us as many people as we can to go to the other shore or go to the ocean, whatever. Just remember, don't get so stuck in ideas, language, and whatnot.
Yeah.
Amia, you want to say something? All right. Okay, thank you so much for your learning and unlearning, remember?
Yep.
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you, Thầy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Thầy, very
So
much.
okay, let's do a short dedication of merit.
The four great values. Sentient beings are numberless. I vow to save them. Desires are inexhaustible. I vow to put an end to them. The dharmas are boundless. I vow to master them. The Buddha way is unattainable. I vow to attain it.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Thầy. Thank you very much, Thầy. Okay.
Thank you,
Everyone,
Amia,
have
for
a good night.
participating.
Bye.
May you all be well, happy, and healthy.
Nam mô Di Đà Phật.
Thank
Nam mô
you.
Phật.
Ayuda Fat.